Modric versus Iniesta. Modric won the Ballon d'Or in 2018. Iniesta never did, even though it always felt like he should have. Iniesta had Spain in his pocket for 4 straight years. Euro 2008, World Cup 2010, where he scored the winner, Euro 2012, while stacking 4 Champions Leagues with Barca. Modric didn't have a golden Spain behind him. He had Croatia and still dragged them to the 2018 World Cup final, then kept anchoring Madrid through a European dynasty. Their styles split the room. Modric's control, those outside foot switches, and 90% type pass nights. Iniesta's glide, the one touch, the release that felt pre-drawn. Neither needed noise, just brains, boots, and medals. When they met, it was speed chess, and you watched to see who set the rhythm first. Lewandowski versus Benzema. Lewandowski's 2019-20 looked like a cheat code, 55 goals and a treble, then the Ballon d'Or night vanished and the debate never stopped. Benzema waited years in Ronaldo's orbit, then stepped into the light and owned 2022 like he'd been rehearsing, with a Ballon d'Or and knockout masterclasses. Louis is repetition sharpened to a blade, same run, same finish, 600 plus career goals, and defenders still can't stop it. Benzema is jazz, pauses, glue touches, then one look and one goal when the game needs a grown-up. Both did their best work in their 30s when strikers are supposed to fade. Instead, they got colder and more clinical. Salah versus Mane. Liverpool's revival needed Mane's engine and Salah's edge. Salah brought 3 Premier League golden boots and 200 plus goals for the club. Mane brought the same fury in different places, 100 plus for Liverpool and an AFCON title where he buried the final penalty for Senegal with a continent watching. You could feel the tension in tiny moments, a pass held a second too long, a glare that hung in the air, until AFCON put them on opposite sides and made it official. At Anfield, one pressed and punctured lines, the other finished and punished. Truth is, remove either piece and the machine never purred as loud. The rivalry didn't break them, it sharpened them. Lampard versus Gerrard. Same passport, same era, 2 different storms. Lampard lived like a striker in a midfielder's shirt. 211 Chelsea goals, double-digit league seasons on repeat, and a Champions League in 2012. Gerrard bent matches to his will. Istanbul 2005, the FA Cup screamer in 2006, 180 plus for Liverpool, the kind of captaincy you feel in your chest. England tried to cram both suns into one sky and wondered why systems melted. One timed runs, the other detonated moments. That's why the discussion never dies, because the answer depends on what you value. Keane versus Vieira. Midfield wasn't a position with these two, it was a border crossing. Keane brought 7 league titles and an iron stare that set the temperature for United. Vieira brought those endless strides, 3 Premier Leagues, including the Invincibles, and the reach to shut whole zones down. The Highbury Tunnel flashpoint wasn't theatre, it was a thesis, identity versus identity, nobody blinking. Every duel felt like a referendum on who owned the league's midfield that year. Tackles thudded, eyes locked, and the rest of us leaned closer. Henry versus Van Nistelrooy. Henry floated left, rolled the ball, and bent physics into the far corner like it owed him rent. 228 Arsenal goals and 4 golden boots say he wasn't bluffing. Van Nistelrooy lived where goals are born, 6 yards out, 1 touch, 1 incision, 150 for United in 219 games and multiple Champions League scoring crowns. Arsenal's elegance and United's efficiency met every spring and settled things with the simplest currency, goals. No trash talk necessary, the table did the talking. Xavi versus Pirlo. This was chess on grass. Xavi muted matches with 90% plus pass nights, 3 Champions Leagues, and the Euro World Cup Euro sweep with Spain. Pirlo answered with diagonals, like calligraphy, 2 Champions Leagues, 6 Serie A titles, and the 2006 World Cup where his set pieces felt like law. Euro 2012's 4-0 final was tiki-taka at full volume, but even beaten Pirlo walked like a statesman. They didn't outrun you, they outfought you, and that's why coaches still play their clips like homework. Kroos versus De Bruyne. Kroos is a metronome. He hits the exact note at the exact time, stacking Champions Leagues while making pressing look like a bad idea. De Bruyne is a controlled detonation. He tied the Premier League single-season assist record at 20, flew past 100 in the league overall, and keeps ripping games open with passes that feel like cheating. Give Cruz a triangle and you'll never see the ball. Give KDB half a window and you'll only see the net ripple. City versus Madrid under lights keeps turning into philosophy class. Rhythm versus rupture. Terry versus Vidic. Two captains who'd block with their face if that's what it took. Terry captained 5 Premier League titles, fronted a backline that conceded just 15 league goals in 2004-05, and treated the 6-yard box like private property. Vidic won 5 league titles too, 2-time Premier League Player of the Season from centre-back, and attacked aerial duels like they were personal. Penalty areas became no-fly zones. 1-0 felt like documentaries about endurance. Strikers hated crossing days for a reason. Sergio Ramos versus Piqué. Teammates in red, enemies in everything else. Ramos stacked 4 Champions Leagues and 5 La Ligas, plus Euro World Cup Euro with Spain, and yes, the La Liga red card record because he never played shy. Piqué answered with 4 Champions Leagues of his own, 1 with United, 8 La Ligas, and surgical timing on the offside line. El Clasico didn't need extra gasoline, but they poured it anyway. Passion versus precision, fire versus freeze, and a decade of nights where the margin was a toe. Ibrahimovic versus Materazzi. Not tactics, memory. Materazzi clattered Zlatan once upon a time. Zlatan kept the receipt. Years later, the derby delivered the bill. A taekwondo-style challenge, a brace, and a story he can tell forever. Ibrahimovic retired with 570-plus career goals and league titles everywhere. Materazzi walked away a world and Europe champion with a PhD in the dark arts. They didn't share a position, just gravity. Whenever they got close, sparks. Cech versus Van der Sar. Goalkeeping as quiet brutality. Peter Cech set the Premier League single-season clean sheet record at 24 and turned a helmet into a symbol of resolve. Edwin van der Sar went 1,311 league minutes without conceding and made entire months feel like closed for maintenance. Angles, command, economy, brick walls with gloves. When Chelsea met United on big nights, the goalmouths felt like locked safes. Buffon versus Casillas. 2 nations, 2 standards. Buffon lifted the 2006 World Cup, stacked double-digit Serie A titles, and wore the captain's voice like a uniform. Casillas carried the 2010 World Cup, Euros in 2008 and 2012, 3 Champions Leagues, and shootout ice that never seemed to melt. They didn't chase headlines or spit lines, they let the gloves talk and the medals keep score. Respect was the rivalry. Suárez versus Chiellini. It started with a bite and ended, years later, with a handshake. Suárez lived on the cliff's edge, 500-plus career goals, 2 European golden shoes, and a chaos rating of 10 out of 10. Chiellini loved the scrap. 9 Serie A titles, 100-plus caps, and a grin that said, "Try me." The ban was heavy, the photos eternal, and the respect eventually real. Time didn't erase the moment, it just filed it. Zidane versus Ronaldinho. Cinema versus carnival. Zidane, Ballon d'Or 98, glided through pressure and left the Champions League final with the most replayed volley of the century. Ronaldinho, Ballon d'Or 2005, made the ball laugh, won Europe in 2006, and earned a standing ovation at the Bernabeu because joy sometimes crosses party lines. One sculpted control, the other painted freedom. Both changed what a stadium can feel like. Messi versus Ronaldo. The rivalry that swallowed the sport. Messi's 8 Ballon d'Ors, 4 Champions Leagues, and a 2022 World Cup that completed the set. Ronaldo's 5 Ballon d'Ors, 5 Champions Leagues, a European Championship, and the men's international scoring record. Together they've cleared 1,400 career goals and turned weekly records into weekdays. One dissolves markers with angles and misdirection, the other detonates them with pace and timing. For 15 years, every season felt like their season, and the argument still decides how we talk about greatness. Neymar versus Hazard. 2 heirs with a throne that kept slipping away. Neymar has 400-plus career goals, a 2015 Champions League, a 2011 Copa Libertadores, and ankles that invent highlights. Hazard brought 2 Premier Leagues, 2 Europa Leagues, a PFA Player of the Year, and a World Cup bronze with Belgium while breaking hips with a shrug. 2018 tilted toward Belgium. The years after tilted toward the physios. The talent wasn't in question, the miles were. Mbappé versus Haaland. The new headline, written in all caps: Mbappé won a World Cup at 19, took the Golden Boot with 8 in 2022, and cleared 250 senior goals before most players hit their peak. Haaland dropped a Premier League record 36 in a season, became the fastest to 50 Champions League goals, and treated year one in England like a treble-winning tutorial. One dances past, the other runs through. Either way the scoreboard moves, every spring, Europe quietly hopes they end up on the same patch of grass. Drogba versus Rooney. Power versus chaos. Drogba circled finals and delivered. The 2012 Champions League equaliser and the winning penalty were his signature. Rooney became United's all-time top scorer with 253, hammered 200 plus in the Premier League, and hit volleys that sounded like arguments. Chelsea versus United turned into appointment viewing because those two made every collision feel like a cup final. Retired or not, say, name a big game player, and their names still show up first. Rivalries aren't just names and numbers, they're competing blueprints for bending the sport to your will. Some do it with glide, some with grit, some with a look that says, not today. The stats explain the scale, but the feeling explains the addiction, and that's why we keep watching long after the whistle.